Episode 90 of the Interpretation Station is called to order. Welcome, everybody, or should I say, Huang Ying, everybody. Yes, a big hello to all my viewers who speak Mandarin. It's our third Mandarin episode today. And as usual, as you know, we have got the Interpretation Station is joined by a very special guest to guide us through the intricacies of the Chinese language. So I am fortunate enough to be joined today by Miss, well, I'm going to call her by her English name. I'm not going to dare try saying her Chinese name. I'm joined by Zoe. Hello, Zoe.
Hi, Roland.
And what? So just you tell the viewers your actual name.
So my Chinese name, I think it's Joey. So that sounds quite similar to Zoe.
Okay, that's not far off.
Yeah.
Far off. Nevertheless, I will stick to Zoe. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Zoe, therefore, is joining us today, and she is going to take us through a text that she sent me. She interpreted a Security Council text, no less. So we'll come to that very soon. Let me just give you a bit of background, though, about the Interpretation Station's special guest today, about Zoe. So Zoe recently graduated from the hallowed halls of Monterey. There's a useful expression for you to know, by the way, guys. The hallowed halls. They always remember the hallowed halls of the UN, so remember that one. So she graduated from Monterey in May of this year. So she's freshly out. She's a freshly minted interpretation graduate. She studied am I right to say a Master of the Arts? Yes?
Yeah.
And so she's now sort of finding her way in the industry, looking for work, trying to cash in a bit on that degree that she worked, I'm sure, very hard for. Perhaps, Zoe, you might like to just give us a bit more details. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Zoe, and I just graduated from the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey, or MIS, which is much shorter and much easier to say. Yeah, and I did MHCI, Conference Interpretation, and my language combination is Chinese A, English B, and German C. Now I'm kind of starting my career as a freelance interpreter. And actually, one Miss Professor recommended this channel to all of us. That's how I discovered the interpretation.
Right? Is that right?
Yeah, Interpretation Station.
Am I allowed to ask who?
Stephanie Cooper.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah. So if you are interested,
Stephanie, you can come on any time after.
Yeah. So if you are interested in international organizations like I do, you should definitely like and subscribe to the Interpretation Station.
I couldn't have put it better myself. Very good, very good. You live, so I believe that Zoe lives in Cupertino. Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
Silicon, which for those who don't know, is pretty much Silicon Valley. Apparently, Apple is headquartered there.
Yeah,
Am I right?
exactly.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, now that we know a little bit about, just tell us, by the way, so where are you from in China?
So I was born in Wuxi. It's not very far from Shanghai. Yeah, but it's not as big as Shanghai.
It's only like 5 million people. Like,
yeah, something like that.
Yeah. One of those Chinese cities that no one's ever heard of, but has a population bigger than sort of Western Europe, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you know a little bit about Zoe now. Now that the formalities, the opening courtesies are over, let's get to the nitty-gritty of today's episode. So Zoe, as I say, she sent in to me a rendering of a statement that China delivered at the Security Council when was it, about a month ago? Less?
I think mid-August. Yeah.
It was the 16th. So I thought it's the 16th of August. Okay, so it's really very, very very up to date, very recent.
Yeah.
On the situation as in Afghanistan. Now, this is a topic I must admit I have never yet covered in my episodes of the Interpretation Station. And I must admit, until about a month and a half ago, things have been pretty quiet on the Afghan front, so to speak. It was an issue that had been really quiet for the best part of a year, hadn't very little said about it. And then obviously we all know now that in the last, weeks, last month or 6 weeks, you can't escape from what's going on in Afghanistan. It's all over the news, all over the press, the media, and so on. And it's a good thing that Zoe's decided to bring it up, because I must admit, it's given me a chance to sort of refresh my own knowledge of the situation in Afghanistan, particularly when it comes, what's at stake there, various groups involved, the various stakeholders involved, and just generally it's good to have, it's good to have an idea of what the key vocab is. If you're going to be doing a sort of a test, be it for the UN or for any international organization or wherever, the chances are that this is a very topical issue, and so it's good to know. It's good to know the at least the basic vocab for what's going on over there. Now, the format. How are we going to do this episode? Well, what we're going to do is this. Like I say, she sent me her original rendering of this text. Now, this text would have been, it's from the Security Council. This would have been supplied, this would have been given to the Chinese booth probably well in advance. The Chinese delegation is very meticulous about that sort of thing. They do tend to provide the text in advance, not at the last minute. So the Chinese booth the interpreter would have had time to prepare it, in detail. Now, Zoe did not, though. So Zoe did this text cold. Now, I don't know if she did any preparation. Did you listen to any of the statements done beforehand by the special representative or anything, or did you just go straight into it?
I went straight into it. So I did a bit of research on
Okay.
Afghanistan. I read news because it's kind of everywhere. Yeah, but I didn't really do any other statements or listen to any other statements in that meeting. Yeah. So
Okay.
it's thank you for being very kind.
That's all right.
It was
That's all
my
right.
very first attempt of
Okay.
this statement, so I missed out quite
So
a lot.
she did it, as I say, she did it cold. I mean, now what I would advise you to do, so I'm actually going to put as usual, in the description box, right? I'm going to give you the link to the audio of this speech, as well as I'm going to give you the transcript of it as well. Now, a good way perhaps of practicing it, if without using the text, doing it cold, is to perhaps you go to the meeting in question and you listen first of all to the briefing by the the SRSG, or I can't remember if he's a special representative or special envoy, who gives you basically a breakdown of everything that's going on. And a good thing to do is, okay, you listen to him, you take down notes on what the key vocab is that he gives you, and then you come and do this Chinese text. That's a very realistic way of approaching something like this. So that's my tip to you as to how to do it. Now, so Zoe gave me that original interpreted version. But what she also did after that was she also then wrote a translation of that whole text. Now, when I say translation however, she's written it as she would interpret it if she had a second go. So she very much follows the syntax of the original Chinese. It's not like with a translation where you can look at the text as a whole and then, it sounds better to have this second part of the Chinese sentence. It sounds nicer in English to put it at the start. So there's none of that. So the version you will see up on the screen is how she would render it if she was to interpret it a second time, and again but following the syntax. Okay, so what she's going to do is she's going to sort of give us a bit of a commentary. She's going to tell us, she's going to say why she maybe changed things in the second version, if there was something she missed in the first version, or if she didn't, or she thought, she found a better solution the second time around. Or there are bits that Zoe misses in the first version where obviously in the second version she had time to think about it and write it. And then when after she's given her little commentary, then I will come in with my own words of wisdom, allegedly, and just give Zoe bits of advice, sort of say what thing, give her ideas for synonyms, good synonyms in English, give her ideas for what the important sort of set phrases are when we go into English, also look at opportunities where she could maybe take little shortcuts and things. So there'll be all of that. So that's just to give you an idea, as I say, of the format that we're going to be following in this episode. And so I think with that, unless Zoe has anything to add at this point, we're going to get cracking with the review of Zoe's interpretation. Zoe, have you got anything to add?
No, let's just take a plunge.
Let's take the plunge indeed. Okay, are you ready, Zoe?
Yep.
Shall we begin? Okay, so we're going to be playing it in pretty much the chunks that you can see on the screen. So here we go.
Thank you, Mr. President. I welcome Secretary General Guterres, and I thank him for his briefing. I listened attentively to the delegate of Afghanistan. The situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Zoe, what would you
Right.
say for yourself there?
So I think the first part is all right. In Chinese, there's 我欢迎, so the part before the Secretary General Guterres. It's a bit tricky because I feel like when the Chinese says 欢迎, it doesn't necessarily mean welcome, because in English, welcome is like almost an action, right? I welcome you. But in Chinese, it's more like an attitude. So I changed it to I thank the Secretary General for his presence and for his briefing. It's also shorter because you can kind of combine the two. Yeah,
I think it sounds nicer to me than just saying
exactly.
welcome. I think it's a bit of a set formula that you'll find at the UN and probably elsewhere. I think the Russians say something similar to what you're saying about Chinese. And as I say, saying I thank the Secretary General for his presence here. I thank him for being here. It's a bit of a standard sort of formulation. Right. I think it's better than just saying I welcome the Secretary General.
Yeah. I find it a bit condescending for a delegate to welcome the Secretary General when he's already there. Yeah, it's a bit weird. But I think there's another way to say it if you want to put welcome in, but instead of using a verb,
you can say
I extend a warm welcome.
You could say that. Or you could just say we welcome the presence of the Secretary General.
Right.
If you want to use if you want to use the welcome. So there's a few little ways of getting it around it. You probably want to be saying his name. It's Gutierrez. You probably at this the opening. So you probably want to sort of get in his name. I mean, in Chinese they say the name, right?
They said it. Yeah, I cut it because I feel like half a second that I can save.
Yeah, I think later on you could certainly cut it. I think maybe for this opening salvo, you probably want to get it in,
Right.
And just again, a quick note for everyone who's watching. So yes, the Security Council has a president, as Zoe rightly says. Okay, so sorry, go on, Zoe. And the second part of this chunk, anything there?
I think it's representative of Afghanistan, not delegate of Afghanistan. Does that make a difference?
I think, okay, so this is important. I think representative is perhaps a better word, because those guys, the UN ambassadors, okay, that represent the country are at these meetings. They're the permanent representatives. That's their official title, permanent
Right.
representatives. You can call them the perm reps or the PRs. Okay. So on a meeting of this would all the top guys would probably be there. So those are two good little acronyms to know for that position. So for the permanent representative, the perm rep or the PR, you can say either or. Okay.
Right.
And I also prefer what you thought. I listened carefully to the statement rather than listened. I think you said attentively in the original. I think carefully. I often say I listened with interest. There's another. Yeah. So you just want to, the important thing is that it sounds good in English. So I listened carefully. We listened with interest. Yeah. Something like that. Attentively doesn't sound quite right. But okay. Let's do the next bit.
The situation of Afghanistan has changed a lot. We respect the will and the decision of the Afghan people. The conflict there has lasted over 40 years.
Okay, let's take those three chunks together.
Right. These three sentences are relatively short, so relatively easy. I mean, changed significantly definitely sounds better than changed a lot.
I would say so, yeah. Has changed great. You could say it has changed greatly. Or if you just wanted to do it in one word, has transformed.
Has completely transformed.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You don't even need to put the completely. I mean, when we say transformed, that does mean
that's a significant change.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's short and sweet. Right. So one question I have for you. So the fourth box in Chinese it says 阿富汗战乱. So I said conflict, but then here I said war. I don't know which one's more correct, or it's kind of interchangeable. There is a war in Afghanistan, right?
It was a war, yeah. It was a civil war. I mean, so is it the same? Do you use the same word in Chinese?
There's so many there's so many words for that. So in the next box, 停止战争. 战争 is literally war, the war.
Okay.
But then you wouldn't say 停止战乱 in Chinese. It's about collocation. So 阿富汗战乱 can be a war, it can be a conflict. The conflict is usually 冲突 in Chinese. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe war is better here.
Oh, I mean, I believe that the original interpreter used the war. Let me just confirm that for you. Yeah, he was talking about the war. He was saying the war. He or she was saying the war. So, okay. You could certainly say either. You could say the conflict in Afghanistan would sound fine as well to me.
Right.
To stop the war and achieve peace. Now, to stop the war and achieve the peace, it's like the juxtaposition of war and peace, where war is perhaps more appropriate than conflict. But
yeah, so, definitely. Yeah, there's one more thing I want to point out. So in these three sentences, in Chinese, Afghanistan, so Afghan, appear 3 times.
Yes.
So I was wondering, should I kind of use maybe a pronoun or something to replace Afghanistan? So I did the conflict there. That's my original.
See, I prefer that. The war that shows exactly.
It's kind of shorter.
You've said Afghanistan, and it's a bit of a mouthful to say Afghanistan. So I think when you actually say in the original the war there, that's good. That's fine. But I would say that's fine. The war there has been going on for over 40 years. These little things, they all save a little bit of time.
Yes.
And they add up, and so it's good that you sort of intuited that. Maybe I take it when you're doing the sight translation, you were playing more safe. Whereas I guess when you were doing the original, you were acting, it was more a sort of reaction. Yes. I'm going to guess. Okay, let's go on.
Stopping the war, achieving peace. The aspiration of the Afghan people and also the international community.
Okay.
Stop. Yeah. This sentence is difficult for me. So it's kind of difficult to find the right subject because you have 停止战争实现和平 to stop the war or stopping the war and achieving peace.
I think that's fine. That's fine,
Yeah,
by the way.
you don't know whether
Either
it's
or
the
is fine, I think.
right. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that this chunk is actually the subject.
The subject, right?
Yeah, but then it's a bit too long
Yeah.
as a subject in English. So I kind of struggled a bit there. So what I did here with the side translation, so with the M dash,
Yeah.
it's like a pause.
Yeah, it's like,
I think we
yeah,
should
right?
use intonation in Simon to help me kind of get the meaning across while saving mental energy
Yeah.
to stop the war and achieve peace. Pause.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I actually like what I said in the original, the aspiration.
If you just said that is the aspiration, that would have, because the way you said it just didn't quite come out as a sentence, because you said stopping the war and achieving the peace, the aspiration of the Afghans and the international community, and there's missing. There's not. You think it's going to continue?
No, I actually said are. So I thought I was like, okay, is this plural, singular, like to stop the war and to achieve peace? Is that? Yeah, I was kind of struggling that. So I ended up saying are the aspiration, but maybe.
Oh, is that what you said? Oh,
yeah,
I didn't.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So I didn't quite hear it right. Okay. See, that's not bad. That's not bad. I'm interested to actually know with the want. Is it so that the verb that you is it like want, or is it stronger than want?
So I changed the noun in Chinese into a verb. So I kind of the English is kind of more flexible. 一致心声, what they all want. I think it's slightly stronger than.
So something it's what they all crave, what they all long for.
Long for, yeah.
Okay, so that's an idea. Okay, if you want to get across that idea, stronger than just want, to long for, to crave, what they aspire to.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are good words again that they use a lot at the UN, or in politics. You know, they talk a lot about the aspirations of peoples and so on. So it's good to have a few different solutions for something slightly stronger than want. Okay. Anything else on that little chunk, or should we go on?
Do you think the 30 million is important? I left out. I
the
heard
number.
it, but I was like, yeah, because this is just the population. It's not that important. Of course, you want to get it in, but I thought when I was doing it, I was like, oh gosh, I couldn't. So just the Afghan people.
The Afghan. It's okay. It's okay. My guess is that perhaps the Chinese ambassador would be hoping to hear a number.
Definitely.
It didn't break up the sentence. That's always, it would be it'd be nice to get it, but you can get away, I think, with leave. I would generally, it's with something like try and get it, to be honest. If you miss the 30, you can always say that's what millions. And if you just hear the million and you miss the exact amount, one thing you can say that's what millions of Afghans want. Okay, that's a sort of bailout. If you miss the exact figure, the 30, you can say millions.
Right.
It's better than nothing. Okay, let's go on. Let me just scroll down. So we're up here, guys. We're up here.
Yep. The priority is to achieve peace and order. We need to avoid unnecessary casualties and a lot of refugees.
Okay.
We can stop there.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay, I missed out. So that list: peace, stability, and order. I missed out.
You missed stability, yeah.
Yeah.
2 out of 3 is all right.
Yeah.
Generally for these things.
Yeah, this is kind of like set phrases.
Yeah.
They usually.
Oh yeah, they do come a bit together. Yeah.
Right. And it's restore. So the Chinese says restore. I just went for achieve. Yeah.
That's not
too bad. And so I think prevent, not avoid. It's kind kind of different.
To prevent, to avoid. I think either or. I think either or is fine. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Right. A lot of refugees. I kind of laughed at that
Lots
point.
of
I was like,
yeah.
I was like, oh my God. Shouldn't have said that. But 产生大
It
规
gets
模
better
难民
than nothing. Okay.
Yeah,
You know, if nothing
exactly.
else. I mean, that is. He says what? Is it a wave? Is it a wave? He says in the original
Not
Chinese.
literally, not literally. 大规模 literally means a large size of.
Okay,
It's like
so if
a
you
lot
say
of.
lots of, okay, it's not. I mean, it's not Shakespearean, but it's English, but it's all right. You know, it gets the idea. There's a lot of them. And a wave, yeah, okay, wave is very good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think wave is a more natural expression.
Yeah.
I think what's difficult here with the Chinese is like 避免无谓的伤亡, that's fine. 和产生大规模难民. So there's a verb 产生, which is like to produce, but I don't think you should put that in English.
Okay.
If you put that in, that you kind of have to restructure the sentence a bit.
Where does the produce come in? Where?
So 产生大规模难民, literally produce a large amount of refugees.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I find that's
to
very
prevent-
weird in English if you say
It's
that.
like prevent the production of a lot
Yeah,
of
the production of
refugees.
okay.
Okay.
You won't say that.
I think no. I think you've done well. I think that you have to sometimes use a bit of common sense that sometimes some of these words in the original language, sometimes they're redundant when you go into English, and you just have to focus on make sure that what you say in English sounds natural, as I say so many times. And I like top priority. I like is that the word for priority? In
当务
Chinese?
之急, the top priority or the order of the day.
Top priority, yeah. Priority is a great word. I find in again, like in Russian, there's so many ways, so many slightly weird euphemisms, using lots of words for these expressions that just basically mean the priority is. And if you just want to give it a bit of oomph for your priority, you just say the top priority. Okay, or you can just say the priority. You know, in English, I don't know if you have that in Chinese. Like I know, but you can put that extra stress on the right. You say the priority is to restore peace, stability, etc. Unnecessary casualties, needless casualties. Also, you could say, and this as much as possible. I find that a bit of a mouthful to say as much as possible, as far as possible. You could just say if we can.
If we can, okay. I left it out completely.
You left it out completely.
I couldn't keep up.
I think under the circumstances, that's reasonable. Yeah. Okay, let's go on.
The foreign nationals in Afghanistan must be respected. Their right must be protected. You can
okay,
stop.
so I think
I left out. Yeah, I missed out a sentence. Why I missed it out? So 驻阿外交机构. So my translation here is not entirely accurate. 驻外机构 is not just embassies. It's kind of embassies and consulates and other agencies of foreign countries in Afghanistan. Is that a word for that in English?
I think embassies, as it is fine. Missions. I'd say maybe missions.
Right.
Like in Geneva,
missions.
in America, you have the permanent mission to the UN.
Right.
It's not the UN embassy to the UN; it's the mission to the UN. So, consular facilities. Again, that's a mouthful. You know, it's all very well if you've got the time to say it and if you've got time to prepare it. Under the circumstances, I think embassies would be fine.
It's good enough. Yeah.
Good enough, exactly.
Yeah. So basically, the Chinese 驻外机构 is an umbrella term, and I was trying to search for an equivalent in English. I couldn't find it, so I just missed the entire sentence out. I was just like, okay,
I think maybe consular facilities, but that's such a it's
embassies
a lot to say.
and consulates.
Yeah. Okay, and then this bit, anything to add there?
So in my translation, I slightly swapped the order. So the 在阿外国公民的安全和利益, because in Chinese you kind of put the of something in front of the noun.
Okay.
Or in English, it's the other way round. But
Okay.
in my original rendition, I just started the sentence with foreign nationals. Then I heard 尊重, I just said foreign nationals should be respected. Then I added that their rights should be safeguarded.
Just give me 1 second,
Right.
Maggie. What have you done? Right, out, you. Sorry. My dog is eating up my box with all my papers. Bad dog, bad dog. Hang on, we have to take this out. Right, sorry.
Right. That's
Okay.
fine. We need some distraction.
That's it.
Afghanistan. Yeah.
Where
Anyway,
did we get to? I mean, the one thing I was going to point. Yeah, you said. I noticed
yeah.
you changed the. You said in the original, respected and protected. Respected and so. But I was just going to say that protected. I like safeguard is a very good
Yeah.
alternative to protect.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it really depends on like how you start a sentence because I started with foreign nationals instead of waiting
Right.
for the right and safety of foreign nationals because I already missed out a sentence and I was like,
Okay.
no, I've got to get this one right.
Yeah.
So I just plunged right in with
Yeah.
the first word. And also just want to point out in English it's Afghanistan. There's no way to shorten it. But in Chinese, if you see 住啊, 在啊, so just one word, one syllable, that's Afghanistan. So
Is that right? That's handy.
That's really difficult to get in. Yeah, so maybe you should use pronouns or just rely on the context.
Okay.
I think the delegates, the representatives are going to get it. You're talking about Afghanistan.
Another
If
thing
you
you
don't
can
say it, it's Afghanistan.
Another thing you can say is in the country. If you're having
You're right, in the
some of
country.
these countries, they are difficult to pronounce. So one way
Yeah.
you can just get, like if you get a somewhere like Equatorial Guinea or something.
Right.
Oh, Equatorial Guinea. Like you say in the country.
Right.
Okay, so that's another alternative sort of little shortcut. Because
Yeah,
everyone
slightly
knows what
shorter.
country we're talking. Everyone knows what country we're talking about. So let's go on.
All parties in Afghanistan must protect their property right and facilitate the orderly retreat of those nationals.
Okay.
I can stop that. Yeah. I missed out. So it's about civilians versus foreign nationals, and
Yep.
I didn't really say the civilians. I property rights. I think it's all right to say property rights, but I missed out an S.
Just property. I don't think
property.
there's anything about rights here. Property is definitely better than
Right.
assets because we're
Yeah,
talking about
exactly.
the physical,
No,
public,
it is-
private property. So that's the one thing I would say protect the lives and property
Yeah.
of civilians. It's an easy. I think I sometimes make the same. There's sometimes quite a bit of overlap between those two concepts, right? Property and assets. It is sort of can lead to confusion sometimes, but I think
Right.
property is the thing.
The word, the right word. I feel like assets sound a bit too rich.
It's a bit. I mean, it's more. It's more. You talk about assets more in an economics based
balance
statement.
sheet.
Yeah, exactly. Accounting, whatever. Right.
Exactly.
One very important. This is a good word, orderly, by the way. So that's a very good word to have. They often talk about things being orderly. They talk about safe, orderly migration, for example, or a safe, orderly withdrawal of foreign troops. However, in this context here in Afghanistan, evacuation is very much the mot juste, with all the the people they were evacuating from the airport. So that's a very important word. Here, evacuation.
So I was struggling.
I know you were grasping for it, weren't you? It's like
I was like withdrawal. No, that's for forces. Then I said retreat. I was like, okay,
yeah.
It shouldn't change it anymore because you're going to miss the next sentence.
That's it. Sometimes, correcting yourself. Generally, a tip for you guys there. Often, if it's not a big correction, you're actually better just going on. If you say something like you said, what do you say? Retreat.
Yeah.
Like 4 times out of 5, it's just better just to press on.
Right.
Because what will happen, you correct yourself, but in correcting yourself, you then lose the next bit. So and then
exactly.
that correction you've made has all been in vain. So I mean, I sometimes do it. Okay, I'm not saying I don't do it. I try not to, as a rule. So I would say just try not to when you can, unless you're absolutely certain when you're correcting it, and you know that you're going to be able to pick up easily from where you left off. Then, as a general, you want to sort of try and avoid doing it. Okay, let's go on the next bit.
China believes that the political solution is the only way out.
I'll just say here, I actually prefer your original version to the written version. It's very it means the same thing.
Yeah.
The interpreted version is very succinct, and you can just move on.
Right. Yeah.
Unlike how you see, you also, because here you sort of duplicate the word solution, the solution.
Yeah.
And so this time it believes that political solution is the only way
out.
out.
Only way out. Yeah.
You don't even need. Do they say the word problem in the Chinese?
Yep.
They do. Okay.
阿富汗问题. There's a lot of 问题.
Yeah.
It doesn't always translate into problem. Sometimes it's an issue. It's not a problem. Yeah, or a topic or something like that. So it really depends on the context. But 问题 in Chinese is really versatile. So
okay.
English
so
Chinese.
I like that too. What I slightly prefer what you said in the original.
Yeah.
For that. Okay, let's do the next bit.
Situation is at a historic juncture.
Just quickly there, were you looking, I think when you said juncture, were you looking for the word junction?
Right.
Was
right.
It
should be junction.
There?
Yeah. It's conjuncture. Right. Junction. Right. Yeah, I should just use crossroads.
Crossroads is the better word. Yeah, crossroads is
the
better.
Direct translation. Yeah.
And that's what you always talk about in the new year. The country's reached a crossroads.
Crossroads.
You don't tend to say it's reached a junction. So
right.
crossroads is the word really to remember.
Right.
Okay. And again, I think you're sort of correcting it historic. I mean,
it's
you're right.
Yeah.
It is historic.
It's not historical. Yeah.
It is historic, but if you've already said historical, no one's, again, it's one of those cases where you're maybe just better on just carrying on rather than.
Right.
And I think a lot of non-native English speakers might not even know the difference, to be honest. It's a bit of there's a bit of a nuance to it.
It's quite different, to be honest. Historical is something happened in the past. Yeah, but it just rolled off my tongue. I was like, oh no, I shouldn't have said it. It's like economic, and you just said economical.
Economical. I think
you don't need that.
Right.
Economic. Yeah.
Okay, let me go look at this next chunk.
We noticed that Taliban said that the war is now over. It is going to establish an Islamic government, and is going to safeguard the safety and security of foreign embassies.
Okay.
Right, I said. So the first thing here, it's also something I noticed while I was doing this transcript. The Taliban, and in English, when you use a pronoun for the Taliban, it's usually they, not it. That's what I see on the news.
They. It's probably better.
Not it. Yeah. And I missed out half of it, to be honest. To consult with other parties, build an open and inclusive. It's quite important, because that's what other countries are asking the Taliban to do.
Yep.
And I missed out the Afghan nationals again. I just said the foreign nationals. Yeah. I said foreign embassy because I was probably thinking of the embassy that I missed out.
Right.
Part. Yeah. It's like, oh.
One thing I'd say is also, so you say notice. I prefer what you've got in the written version. Took note. It's more.
It's different.
It's more. It's a higher register. You don't really notice. I mean, you do notice things, but something like this is a very formal expression. That the countries will say a lot. We take note of it. We take note of the report.
Yeah.
We take note of the statement by. So that's a very important. Just a very important expression to be comfortable with. To take note of. other than that, you said to safeguard the safety. So
right, yeah.
you got to choose. I think you could probably say act responsibly to safeguard, let's say, the Afghans and foreign delegations, or ensure the safety. Either or, but again, to safeguard the safety sounds a bit weird.
Yeah, right. What about to protect? Just to protect.
To act responsibly, to protect. Again, going at speed, I think you would be well within your rights. I think that gets across the same meaning. Yeah. Right. If you want to sort of ensure the safety, that's quite a few syllables there. So I think if you're falling behind, you could just say to protect. Yeah.
We hope that the Taliban can uphold their commitment. We hope that the reconstruction in Afghanistan is going to go smoothly. We trust that Taliban is going to work with other parties and ethnic groups.
Oh, sorry, that's because the next one.
Yeah, it's already the next one because I missed out quite a lot there.
Let me just actually comment first on a couple of things that occurred to me there. So I prefer how you say so. Looks forward to. Again, that's a higher register than hope.
Right.
I think you say hope quite a lot.
Shorter. It's just shorter. Yeah.
Again, another word. I think you use it sometimes yourself, to trust.
I use it
that's
sometimes,
a very sort of diplomatic sounding word, to trust. Now, you said in the original, uphold that commitment. Now you say here to become a reality. The only thing here is in this to become a reality. To me, that seems a bit more of a leap than is needed from the original. Now it does mean the same thing. I get what you're saying. It's the same thing. My inclination is, though, if I was to hear that in one of my languages, I would just want to stick with that syntax of, okay, you said upholding the commitment, okay? And I get the feeling also that you're a bit uncomfortable getting me with those two words, like looking for like upholding commitment. So what you want to have, so I talk about delivering on commitments, right. Making good on commitments, okay? Meeting, for an easier one, that sounds slight register down, but to meet commitments. So that is to honor, you can honor commitments. Right. You want, if I were in your position as an English B, I'd want, say, 2 of those to just be very comfortable with just tripping off the tongue, because my impression was that you used up quite a lot of brain power in that moment to get the uphold the commitments, that you then lost the subsequent couple of sentences. Right. So you got that uphold the commitments, but then everything sort of, you lose the next bit. And then what I see you seem to do is you stitch a couple of these sentences together. You talk about the political, you remember the political maybe, and then you talk, I think the rebuild, you're thinking reconstruction. And so you're mixing the political transition with the rebuilding of the country is my impression of what happened there. Would that be close to the truth?
Yeah, that's something that often happens when I'm behind. Yeah, like trying to recall what the speaker has said and kind of mix things together. Yeah.
So I think the problem there is being comfortable with these very typical political expression or political whatever, just expressions in English, these collocations, like, as I say, meeting a commitment or honoring a commitment, making good on a commitment. I think that again, it happens to me sometimes. You get it fast, and you end up you hang on to those words that you caught, and you try and stitch them together, which is risk. I mean, at least if you can
dangerous.
It's dangerous. It can be very dangerous. One other anything you'd like to? There was one other little thing I want to just comment on about your choice of words in the written bit. But is there anything you want to add?
So what I want to add is that it's difficult here because, as you can see, it's just one run-on sentence in Chinese, and when you hear it, you don't know where the full stop is. You don't know when a sentence ends, and a lot of Chinese sentences don't have a subject. So that's why I keep saying we. I know it's something that I need to.
Yeah,
I noticed that when I'm kind of behind, and I don't want to use up too much brain power because I know there are different ways of dealing with this.
Yeah.
Like you use the object as the subject in English, and put a should, or you can use what's that, passive voice in English, but that can take up a lot of brain power as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
So
I have this problem with in Spanish and in Russian. You have the same thing where you don't have a subject. It's like they use
yes,
like a reflexive verb.
right, yeah,
And so you have to just sort of adapt. And so, yes, you do sometimes end up weeing. So,
yes,
it tends to be either you go with a we, or you have to leave the verb. You have to turn it into a passive. You have to remember the
yeah,
word for a little bit.
exactly.
And so usually the less taxing solution is to go with the we. And usually it's fine, but every now and then it goes wrong, and you need to be prepared to suddenly change course if it does turn out to be wrong. So
Yeah,
that's just that's just
yeah,
one of the things with the different
there are,
syntax and languages. Yeah.
yeah, there are lots of sentences like that in this statement. Yeah,
There's another thing
far
that we
too
do
many.
in is that you turn that reflexive verb into a noun. You sort of say that, so like in I don't know, in Spanish, se dice que. There is talk. You can say there is talk that. You leave it really neutral. You put there.
Yeah,
There is,
it's
I find that in Russian, I'll be saying stuff like, there was the adoption of a law. Okay, so where it should be, a law was adopted.
right.
But so that I can follow the syntax, I'll turn it into, there was the adoption of a law. And it doesn't sound that nice in English. This is the thing you have to, it doesn't sound that nice in English, but it makes sense. Okay. So you shouldn't let the fact that it doesn't sound great English. Sometimes it's better, as I say, to make sure the meaning gets across. That's
Right.
rather than sounding, as I say, like a wonderful speaker.
Yeah,
So
I should not overthink.
you don't overthink. What matters more to the delegations is that the message the meaning gets across, rather than any sort of linguistic flowers. So
Right. There's another way to deal with this in Chinese is to say it's important that, because when there's like, we should let this, or you should do it. But without saying the you, then it's like it's important to do something.
It's important. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's necessary for, there is a need to.
There's a need to, and
Yeah.
also that with that kind of structure, you don't need to point out who needs to do it.
Exactly. That's exactly.
I think that's the point.
The there takes the place of the subject. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the point in a diplomatic situation.
Yeah. Now, the one other thing I want just to ask you here. So you say all forms of terrorism and crimes should be curbed. This word curbed in this context, I don't know if I'm that keen on it.
Okay. You can curb a crime.
See, we would say the collocation I always go for was terrorism, crimes, to combat or to counter, to combat or to counter.
So that's the verb, that's the action that you take. But in Chinese, it's kind of the result.
Okay.
Yeah. 得到遏制, it's like they need to be suppressed.
Say, I think the original English, in the original English the interpreter said,
right.
The Chinese interpreter said, he says curb as well. It's quite interesting. He says curb as well.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But to me, that doesn't sound right. To me in English, when we talk about fighting terrorism crimes, we talk about combating crimes,
should be
countering.
Countered.
We counter terrorism, we combat crimes. I mean, curb would. I'm wondering, do the Chinese listen in a lot? I think they do follow quite a bit the English. And if they do follow the English, they automatically become your main client. So
it depends.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can see the Chinese representative like listening carefully and kind of waiting for the interpreter to finish the sentence.
I think they do. I think I think they track quite closely. So I reckon they'd be probably fine with curbed. I guess so. You have to it's a judgment call, really.
Yeah.
To me, as a native English speaker, crimes curbed sounds weird, slightly weird to me. I would prefer combat or counter. But if you've got the Chinese listening to every word you're saying, then sure, go with curbed. If he's happy with it, then that's fine. Okay, let's see. Let's go on.
Which is going to lay a solid foundation for lasting peace.
Hang on, I'm just gonna go back a little.
Parties and ethnic groups.
Okay.
The reconstruction in Afghanistan is going to go smoothly. We trust that Taliban is going to work with other parties and ethnic groups, which is going to lay a solid foundation for lasting peace in Afghanistan.
Okay,
I left out a little part.
You left out a little bit in the.
I don't know how to
you
put
said
it in.
trust. You said China trust. So I prefer what you said there in the original. Rather, hopes is fine. Just trust sounds.
I feel like with trust, it's like, so we know it's probably going to happen. Then you say trust. Hope is like we don't know.
Right.
So I feel like here it's more like we don't know. We don't know if
okay,
the
I see what
Taliban
you're getting at. There's more. It's more in doubt.
Yeah, it's more in doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you probably. Use.
I think they are interchangeable.
Yeah.
So the part that I missed out, I find it really difficult to get in because of the syntax.
Okay, one thing I'd say immediately is the taking into account of the situation. So is that how it reads basically in the Chinese?
Actually, no. So the problem here is, how should I do it? 建立符合自身国情广泛包容的政治架构. So the Chinese like 建立架构. It's that's the thing you want in English, but there's the adjectives, a long string of adjectives modifying the 架构, the object that you want immediately after the verb, because in English you're going to use which.
Okay.
So you need to swap the order. But in Simul, there's no time, and I've got to predict. I don't know how long the list is going to go on, and I don't know what's going to be there at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Basically. So that's why I did taking into account of the situation. So that's 符合自身国情. So I kind of extracted the first adjective. It's actually a phrase that's used as an adjective. I extracted that, and then by the time I finish it, I will probably already hear 建立政治架构. So I know it's okay. Create a political structure. 广泛包容, I can just use inclusive, so that can work. But when I first did it, I was like, "What is that?" Yeah.
The only sort of input I can give on that in that respect is taking into account of it again is a lot of words. And I notice you do it later on. You say taking into consideration. You say, I don't like those expressions. I just say given the situation.
Right.
Okay.
If it's proper translation, then it's to create a political structure which fits the situation in Afghanistan and is inclusive. That's the proper way to do it.
I see.
But then you can't do that in Simul. You've got to anticipate. You don't know what's coming. Yeah.
Or you repeat. So you have the noun first. Is that?
No, you have the verb and the noun are miles apart. It's a bit like German sometimes. So where you get it, or you get the verb at the end.
But just repeat to me again what you said.
As in the translation, the proper written translation.
Yeah, if you're really just following the syntax to
really following the syntax.
Yeah.
So I'll do a literal translation of this. To create, fit the situation in Afghanistan, and inclusive political structure. And it's kind of long. You don't want
I think you have to go for something neutral, don't you? Like I think to create with respect to the situation in Afghanistan, an inclusive political structure to lay the foundation for lasting peace. I think you just have to sort of separate it, like give it its own little clause.
Yeah.
Would that work? To create with respect to the situation in Afghanistan, taking into account the situation. Okay, okay, because the first word is to create, right?
Yes.
Aha. But do you know that's they? Do you know, or you could say
So
creating.
you only know it's Taliban, so the subject is Taliban should, and also you don't know whether it's to create or to build. Actually, the Chinese is more like to build, 建立, but literally. But sometimes build doesn't work in English. Create is better.
Okay.
But that's you can only know
No,
that.
I think I think either or would work there. But could you do it? Would it make sense to go? They should create with respect to the situation in Afghanistan, with respect to the situation, an inclusive political structure to lay the foundation for lasting
with
peace.
Intonation, with right intonation.
This is very important. In English, you can get away with it, right? That because English does have a lot more intonation, I think, than other languages.
Yes.
So you can sort of so there you go. There's a tip for you. In English, take advantage of that. That I suspect you don't quite have that in Chinese as much, right? The intonation
or maybe it
thing.
works a different way. Definitely not the same way as
right.
English.
But in English, you do have that where you can sort of use the intonation to your advantage. So.
Yeah, and to insert clauses.
Exactly. Yes.
Works
yes.
in
Exactly.
Chinese.
Exactly. Yeah. One other last thing I'd say on that chunk: just lasting peace. Lasting peace speaks for itself.
Long lasting.
You don't need long lasting. Yeah. Okay, let's go on.
Over the past 20 years, terrorist groups like ISIS gathered in Afghanistan and posed threats to the international community.
Okay.
Stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll comment first.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I was a bit behind, so I could kind of swap it around. I said the terrorist organizations first because by that time I already heard it. I was behind, and That's nice, actually. Yeah, there are 3 terrorist organizations on this list. I only got the first one, ISIS. Should I have gotten Al Qaeda?
Probably.
It's a no-brainer. But why? Because I've never heard of Dong Yiming. I was like, what is that? So while I was thinking of that, I forgot Al Qaeda. So I was like, ISIS? Yeah. And I was like, okay, never mind. Let's go on. Yeah.
Well, that's a good example. Okay, what Zoe did there. So she got the terrorist organ, and then she sort of reverted back to saying like ISIS. It would have been even nicer if she like ISIS and Al Qaeda. But that's the point.
I got thrown off.
You can, you can do it.
That one.
And this third one's a bit tricky if you haven't followed the situation closely. No, had you perhaps listened to the original briefing by the SRSG, maybe he would have mentioned them.
Yeah.
So maybe.
Yeah, is that an abbreviation for this one? Because this is so long and it's like 3 syllables in Chinese.
Which one? The Eastern Turkish.
The Eastern Turkestan Islamic movement.
Right.
It's Dong Yiyun.
I've never heard of that one. I must admit.
Oh, you've never heard of them?
No,
okay.
never heard of them.
Right.
One thing I was just going to say has been expanding in Afghanistan, and then in the original you said
gathered. I said gathered.
Gained a foothold is a good word for when talking about terrorist groups when they're operating in a certain region. You know, they've gained a foothold there. Is a good synonym to have, and posed a serious threat. That's a good collocation. And so this is just, by the way, very important international peace and security. So that that's classic UN Charter language that gets mentioned all the time. I don't know. In Chinese, do you go noun adjective?
What do you mean by noun
adjective? Is it like peace and security international? If you see what I mean.
No. It's international peace and security.
Also, in Chinese, the adjective does come before the noun.
Oh, always.
Well, that's handy. That's useful, isn't it?
But
not
when
like
the adjective,
French.
No, not like French or Spanish. Right. But the problem is that when the adjective is too long, adjectives do appear before nouns in Chinese. But the problem is that no matter how long the adjectives are, they always appear in front of the noun. But in
Okay.
English, you will have which is or that. You
Uh-huh.
put it right, kind of post-modify the noun. But in Chinese, it's pre-modify, and that's a problem. That's what I encountered the box before. So that's
Okay.
the 建立, the creating the political structure. That
So
part.
you'll say just so in again, this makes me think it's like Russian. So in Russian, like they'll say something like, in the adopted in Moscow in 1976 convention.
Exactly. I hate
Is that the same in Chinese?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
okay. So what you have to sort of do there in Russian is, well, okay, let's say it's in the, because if it's like the adoption of a resolution, then you don't even need to say that it's adopted. So then you would just say in the 1976 resolution. But let's say they'll say also in the proposed in 1980 resolution for this, and you have to sort of turn the proposed into a noun in the proposal back in 1970 for a decision. So you have to tweak it. You have to turn these proposed, this like adjective, you have to make it into a noun. So we'll see.
Yeah. Or make
No,
it
that's what they
into
do
a
in Russia. Was the
Yeah.
the adopted in 1986 decision stipulates blah blah blah, and we would turn that into, so the adoption of the 1986 decision, it says blah blah blah.
Right. Yeah.
So okay, so that's interesting. So there's quite a lot of parallels.
Similarities,
I get what you're saying now. I get what you're saying.
Right.
Okay, let's go on.
Afghanistan should not be a breeding ground for terrorist groups again. And this is the red line that should not be crossed.
That's good to me.
Yeah. Terrorist safe haven is the literal
I think
translation,
both are nice. I think safe haven, breeding, maybe safe haven's a bit nicer, but breeding ground's not bad, not bad.
Yeah, I mean the meaning is that, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't take issue with that.
Yeah. We'll go on.
Hope that Taliban should uphold its commitment and cut all ties with terrorist groups.
I can feel you're just struggling to get that the right words, right?
Yeah. The collocation, which word?
Yeah. Keep their promise. I mean, you keep their promise again. But so really, just repeat to yourself. Deliver on their promise. Keep their promise. Make good on their commitment.
Right.
Honor their commitment. All these ones.
All countries should abide by the international law and uphold the international law. The humanitarians. Right.
Okay. Let's. Okay.
I was.
It starts nicely. That's
it starts nicely. Yeah.
To abide by international. That's a really nice collocation. Nicer than the follow. That's nicer. Abide by international and Security Council resolutions. So.
Yeah. Then I was like, what?
And then again, here you've got they're fulfilling their obligations.
Yeah.
This is very similar to this meeting commitments, making
exactly. Yeah. I missed out the resolutions. That's why I can't repeat it, the international law.
Right.
I have to finish this sentence, even if it means I repeat what I said.
Yes. Yeah.
I have to do it, even though it sounds silly, completely silly. Yeah. And I hate lists. And here come the list again. It's like, that Dongyi, that Eastern Turkestan Islamic movement came up again. Yeah.
And thriving in the cry, that's a very good verb. Thrive, prosper, thrive.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to translate from Chinese into English because it's not the Chinese are very colorful here.
Okay.
Yeah, 趁乱做大 means 趁乱 is like to take advantage of the situation. 做大 is to thrive. But then I don't think you need both. It's a bit too much. So
from exploiting the situation.
Yeah, right. Exploiting. Right. That's a good one.
Yeah. So again, if that's maybe a bit simpler than like to thrive in the crisis. Again, something just sort of simple and straightforward, like to exploit the crisis, exploit the situation, would I think do nicely.
Yeah. And there's one thing I want to mention for the original. So the first part is to like abide by the law and the resolution. That's fine. 合作打击一切恐怖主义 is to do something. Then 坚决防止 then the list is also to do something. So you kind of get this kind of parallel structure. But in English, if you keep saying to do this, to do that, to do this, to do that, isn't that a bit weird? Or does it sound a bit chaotic?
To fulfill their obligations. So which is the list? Which is the...
So to fulfill their obligations. Then the next part is 合作打击一切恐怖主义 to jointly counter all forms of terrorism.
Okay.
That's fine. But then it's a comma. I put a full stop here because I think in English it's a sentence already. But in Chinese it's a comma. 坚决防止 then the 3 terrorist organizations 承认做大. So it's to prevent them from
Okay, and you're saying there's too many sort of sub bullet points.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
and they are all
yeah,
connected. Yeah. So that's
to fulfill
something
the
that's
comment,
difficult
to
for
jointly
me.
counter, and again, you could start a new sentence if you felt it was slipping out of hand.
Yeah, why should
and you do that generally. One thing I'd point out for the viewers that in the written version here that Zoe's given me, she does do a very good job of splitting up much of the text into small, succinct packages. If you just look through it, when you look at it, she does a very good job of that. So I think Chinese sentences are quite long. Is my the impression I'm getting, and in this written text, she does a very good job of breaking it up into, as I say, much more manageable chunks. So that's something to try and emulate. Okay. Where do we get to? Okay.
The humanitarian situation is a huge challenge in Afghanistan. There is a lot of pressure when it comes to containing the crisis.
Okay. What do you want to say? Do you want to start?
Yeah, I think it's a huge challenge. It's fine. I mean,
it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fine. Yeah. Then
that's a good word. Is dire on the ground? Is woeful? Is appalling? Humanitarian situation. Yeah. Dire, woeful, appalling. These are all good synonyms to have.
Right. And I kind of combined the humanitarian aid or assistance with the pandemic management because I was a bit behind, so I heard face huge pressure already.
Yeah.
So I just said there's huge pressure. Then I kind of make up for
revert
what comes. I revert the order when it comes to
sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to do
that. But I think I should mention the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the use of the word contain. That's a very good verb to go with things like to contain the pandemic, to contain the crisis. That's a very, rather than just address. Sometimes you find contain has got it's a very good word, good verb to be using with things like pandemics and crises. Okay, let's go on.
The international community should provide humanitarian assistance to refugees from Afghanistan. Relevant parties should make sure that humanitarian assistance is unhindered.
Okay, let's do these two.
Yes, kind of two chunks. Yeah, so I shortened it quite a bit. So one problem I faced is again the issue that long adjectives come in front of the noun. So here there's 接收了大量
compound adjectives. Is that not what we call them? Compound adjectives, I think, is the expression.
So basically, that's a full sentence, and the sentence modifies the adjective, but you don't do that in English. So 接收了大量流离失所者的阿富汗邻国. It's a mouthful. So when I heard 接收了大量, so accept. Okay, literal translation is accepting a large amount of displaced Afghans. Afghanistan's neighboring countries.
Okay.
So that's the word order.
Oh, okay, right. Bloody hell. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to predict.
Yes.
I guess if you know the situation, when you hear accepting a large amount of displaced, okay, the noun is going to be neighboring countries.
This is where you turn it into a noun. So the acceptance of many refugees by the neighboring countries this, it's like you're putting like a colon almost. You're sort of separate, you're turning it into a
Yeah.
colon, and then you say this, as in what you've just said, this is whatever it is.
But then the problem is, these neighboring countries,
Uh-huh.
this is not the subject, this is the object, because the sentence starts with the international community should step up assistance to A and B. A is Afghanistan, B is those countries, those neighboring countries that have accepted a lot of refugees. So in the end,
Okay.
I just said the international community should assist the refugees. So I anticipated when the Chinese says 加大项, I anticipated it's going to be something like help or assistance. So I said it before the help or assistance
Okay.
come up in Chinese. So I started with the international community should
Okay.
assist Afghanistan. That's fine. And then I didn't
Uh-huh.
know that terrible chunk is going to come after Afghanistan. So like, okay, never mind, just the refugees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And the refugees, yeah, it's just on that word. So you have this. So usually,
It should be displaced.
persons are
Yeah.
IDPs. But the thing
IDP.
is,
That's internally displaced.
exactly. Usually that's in the same country, but this is obviously referring to neighboring countries.
Yeah, so it's not IDP.
So, which is why I'm saying I think refugees is perfectly legitimate as well to use in this case. I mean, if you're going to say it took in many displaced persons, you probably want to throw in the word persons.
I was like, the displaced. Can I just use many displaced?
The display,
but
sort of okay.
Slightly weird.
Yeah. To ease the humanitarian crisis, that's good. And then, okay, down here, parties should make sure that international humanitarian bodies can carry out their work unhindered. That's, to me, that is, okay, you talk about humanitarian assistance. I guess you're still a bit, you're still reeling from this previous, compound
I
adjective,
was not,
right?
haven't recovered from that one.
Yeah.
So I left out the bodies or the organizations, just said that the international humanitarian assistance should be unhindered.
Okay. So unhindered, unimpeded is another good synonym for that. They often talk, unimpeded, unhindered access for humanitarian convoys. I've heard the last couple of days, unfettered access as well used. So these are good to know, but if you hear unfettered, it's good to actually be able to recognize it from the English to know that it just means the same, okay?
The international community should help Afghanistan and its neighboring countries contain the pandemic.
That's good.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say there? Or? Swift, okay, you miss out the swift.
I think it's all right. I mean,
When you're under pressure, adverbs are one of the first things that
to cut.
Start getting systematically dropped, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
You could probably say its neighbours rather than having to go saying the country. You could probably just say its neighbours. Yeah. Okay.
Mr. President.
Oh, okay. Just get rid of that.
Yeah, I cut it here.
Yeah, you didn't know this. Okay, so Mr. President, don't. I know there's a feeling that if you say Mr. President, you think, I've missed all these things, but if I say Mr. President, everything will seem all right. He'll know that I'm following. Nah, just drop it. Just breathe. Yeah. Okay.
The crisis in Afghanistan is directly related to the hasty withdrawal of foreign forces.
Foreign forces, foreign troops, either or, right?
Yeah.
This bit now. Okay.
Relevant countries should support the peace and reconciliation of Afghanistan. They should play a constructive role.
Okay, that's pretty good. Again, keep their. You like fulfill, don't you?
Yeah, I kind of my go-to word.
Yeah, right. Funny enough, I rarely say fulfill. This doesn't sound natural to me. I mean, it is. It's okay. Yeah, keep their promises, honor their promises, whatever. I noticed you turned the countries concerned instead of relevant countries. So the Russians. This is again the Russians do this as well. They put this adjective. Yeah, they do something similar. Sometimes you don't even need to say it. These countries, if they're already being talked about,
those countries. Yeah.
Here, maybe you do need that concerned. because the countries aren't mentioned in the previous. If it said the withdrawal of foreign countries or whatever,
right,
troops. So here, countries concerned, that works well. Peace, reconciliation, reconstruction.
I missed out reconstruction. Yeah,
reconstruction. That's an important one in obviously
exactly.
in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a triplet: peace, reconciliation, and
it
reconstruction.
is. They often come as a package. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
When it comes to respecting the sovereignty of Afghanistan, and in areas like humanitarian assistance and counterterrorism, they should continue to provide assistance.
Okay.
Right, I made that up, the counterterrorism, because it's really dangerous. Because I was thinking of narcotics, but I was like, how to pronounce that word? I said counterterrorism in the end, because the speaker also mentioned terrorist groups many times.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. You know, I mean, obviously that is,
I mean, it's not completely wrong, but it's still very dangerous.
Exactly.
Yeah, and here, this list and the sentence structure, the syntax, made it really difficult for me to formulate a sentence in English.
One expression that you use I'm interested in. Okay, the leading role. So you say in the here the leading role, and then you talk about sovereignty.
It depends on how you
I noticed that in the original interpretation by the guy in the meeting, the interpreter at the meeting, he used the word ownership. Okay.
Ownership.
That strikes me as that's a very important concept in these crises or resolutions to these crises.
Right.
They always talk about how the process should be like in Syria, Syrian-owned, Syrian-led, exactly. Ownership is a very important concept. So I was wondering in the Chinese, what's the word in question?
It's
this leading role?
主导权. So I had, I don't know what that kind of meant in Chinese. It's very fuzzy in Chinese. So 主权, sovereignty is 主权, leading role is 主导 without the 权.
Yeah.
So I think ownership is actually a very nice translation, because I also read translated statements, so not done by the interpreters but by the translators. For 主导权, they actually used either leadership or leading role, but I find it quite weird, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, ownership is a bit of a buzzword these days.
The best word to use here. This part is just really difficult. So
it is.
You need to be really nimble in order to get all the words: political, like security, development, humanitarian, and whatnot. Yeah. If you want to follow the order, if you don't follow the order, you just can't get all of them in.
Right. I mean, again, with a long list like this, I wouldn't even expect to get all. You got how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things here. Under those circumstances, if you get 3 out of the 5, you'd probably be fine. So you can't always expect to get all of them. All right, that's another thing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
No text under pressure. A long list like that. Don't even.
It's just no. Yeah.
Sort of try and pick out the ones you hear. Try and get them, but don't expect to get all of them. Okay, let's go on.
Many delegates mentioned that they hope to see neighboring countries of Afghanistan playing a more important role. Some neighboring countries also said that they would participate in this meeting, but their request was rejected. Okay. I feel things here. I think the first part is all right.
You get the meaning. You get them. I mean, you get the meaning out in those two chunks. There's a couple of words that sort of fall by the wayside, but you get it's comprehensible what you say.
Yes, at least comprehensible. They would like to attend the meeting. But I think make requests would be better, or they requested. They
Requested,
requested
yeah.
to attend the meeting.
To attend the meeting, take part, whatever.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Taking into consideration that the situation on the ground.
I think you'd skip this bit.
I skipped that. I skipped this part because maybe I was thrown off by the UNAMA, so I didn't get it the first time.
The Chinese acronym for it, or
there's no Chinese acronym.
Uh-huh.
It's 联合国驻阿富汗援助团. So the Chinese is actually longer than the English for the first time. Yeah.
Well, in a situation like this, you could go straight into UNAMA. So, by the way, you don't need the. Don't forget the.
Okay,
so with English acronyms, okay, like the when you say them, like NATO, or
but you need the UN, right? The UN, the EU. So sometimes.
Okay, if it's the letters, the UN, that's where you use the WTO or whatever. But for the ones that sort of form a name. Like then
so
you don't
abbreviation versus acronym. This is an acronym, not an abbreviation.
Exactly. Yes. So you just say UNAMA, and because they would have been talking about it, everyone knows who UNAMA is.
Except me.
Another thing you could do, if you're in trouble, if you maybe forget it, okay, you hear it in Chinese and you can't remember what's the name of it in English. You say the UN mission.
Okay.
And that again, everyone will know. Okay, everyone knows UNAMA, so that they won't know that they won't realize that you didn't know, and it's perfectly legitimate thing to say the UN mission.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a, as I say, a bit of a bailout sort of alternative solution. Okay, and so let's just listen to the last bit then.
Yeah. Taking into consideration that the situation on the ground has changed, we trust that the Secretary General is going to make proper arrangement for UNAMA. The Secretary General, we trust, is going to provide relevant suggestions and adaptations in the near future. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay.
So there's one part that I actually didn't understand when I was doing it, but I left it out, which is all right, better than saying something wrong. So in Chinese, 存在问题，联合国在阿的存在问题，存在问题 initially I thought it was like existing issues, existing problems, but it's actually 存在 is this problem. So this 存在 means the presence of like UN missions.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. There's kind of a lack of background knowledge.
Okay.
Which led me to assume that it's about like existing problems.
Okay.
Yeah. But I didn't say it. I just said that the Secretary General will provide relevant. Yeah, I think actionable is the word.
They actually use actionable in the original interpreter used actionable.
Yeah.
It sounds fine, actually. It sounds good. It sounds. I would never say it in ordinary parlance, but in the UN, it sounds quite legitimate.
Very businessy.
Very actionable.
Very
actionable recommendations. Yeah, it's good. It's good, actually. I like it.
Yeah.
One thing I'd say. So again, this is where I talk about the taking into consideration that you say in the original, whereas it would be better to say given the situation on the ground, or given that the situation on the ground has changed dramatically. So again, I notice here that in the when you give the translation, you break it up again into smaller sentences.
I add as a result.
Good. Yes.
Yeah, to make the linkage. So instead of making the linkage at the very beginning, because you might miss the next sentence.
Yes.
So at least the first sentence is complete. Even if you miss out the next sentence, it's fine. So adding as a result is better than saying because.
That's very good. That's a very good approach. You've got at least you get something out of that. The way you've done it there, you've got one sentence out, and then as I say, you make the linkage, and then hope you can get the rest out. Secretary General, you can call him the SG. Okay.
So it's okay to use acronyms or abbreviations.
The SG. I mean, you've already addressed him as the Secretary General Gutierrez. Kerish at the start. So you can say the
Right.
SG, it's fine.
Right.
That's legitimate,
Okay.
for the safety of you and BUNAMA personnel. And again, yeah, we trust the SG. You're fine to use SG as a perfectly decent acronym. I think that's it.
Yeah.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm quite all right.
Are you still with us? Alive and kicking?
Yeah. Are you asking the listeners? Because this is
Are the listeners still
intense.
alive and kicking? Are you guys okay? It's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a very difficult text, right? And I want to repeat that if you were doing that, if you were working at the UN and the Security Council, you would get this text before you, almost certainly, before you would have time to prepare it. So Zoe did this, as I say, pretty much without any preparation. As I say, my advice to you is that when you do this, listen to the original briefing. That's always a good way, as I say, to approach these kinds of things, and then do it. And then, well, watch the episode. So Zoe, do you think you'd like to do something like this again? Any final comments from you?
Well, yeah, I'm definitely up for all of this.
It's just a matter of just practicing and practicing.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's really
It's a matter of
no
practice.
secret.
Yeah. You know what? I actually have my practice shirt.
Oh, you get practice. Look at that.
Yeah.
There you go. And then another thing, they have these meetings in Afghanistan. Pretty much, I think it's once a month. So that's one way to do it. Now you've watched the episode of this one. Come back in 2 or 3 days time. Go back to the UN, the Security Council webcast page. Find the meeting from a couple of months ago, 3 months ago. Doesn't matter, and try it again. And that way you'll find that knowledge base, the vocabulary starts to build up. That's the best way to do something, things like this on these issues. Well, guys, if you have enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash the thumbs up button. Subscribe. Zoe, say that in Chinese, please. Smash the thumbs up button and subscribe.
You're putting me on the spot. I never say that in Chinese.
Do they not say smash the thumbs up button?
It's usually just 点赞. So it's
I think I've heard that before.
click the thumbs up button, click like and subscribe. 点赞关注.
There you go. Share it with your friends, your colleagues, everyone, all the members of the family. That's the way. Hopefully I'll persuade Zoe to come back and do another episode.
Maybe not Afghanistan.
If she's not been too traumatized by today's. Not in Afghanistan. We'll do something different, I promise.
Yeah, something different.
Zoe, would you like to say goodbye to everyone?
Yeah, sure. So,
you can say it in Chinese if you want.
Goodbye, 再见, go practice and follow the interpretation station.
Very good, very good. Excellent. Guys, been a pleasure. All the stuff that we've done, all the audio, all the documents, you're going to find them in the description box underneath the video. That's it. I'm done. Where I am, it's 10:20 in the evening. I'm about to go to bed probably pretty soon. Where's Zoe? What time is it where you are, Zoe?
It's 1:19 p.m.
1:19 in Cupertino. So Silicon Valley's going to lunch right about now. So bon appetit. How do you say bon appetit? How do you say that in Chinese?
You don't say that.
You don't say it. You don't really say it in English, do you? We don't really
yeah, exactly, because you use the French version, right?
Yeah.
You don't say that. So if you have to translate it, 尽情享用.
There you go.
So just enjoy yourself, something like that.
There you go.
But you don't say bon appetit.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So all that remains to be said is that episode 90 of the interpretation station stands adjourned.
The train is now leaving the interpretation station. We hope you enjoyed your visit. Until next time, folks.